record. Right, so welcome. Afterwards, if you have any questions or if you would want us to set up a session for yourself, your research group, your institution, your department, your faculty, please reach out to us. Of course, in virtual space, yes, it does make things easier to just quickly hop online and do a session with yourself. We can cover the same topic. There are extensive topics that we can cover, but we are here to support you. And of course, cater to any research inquiries. All right, my email address, as you can see on the screen, you're welcome to reach out to me, and you will also get some report helpful information as a follow-up. All right, so if we look at the matter of showcasing our work, why is it so important for us to be able to showcase our work? Well, of course, you want to get noticed by potential collaborators. You want to enhance the reputation of yourself, your department, and your institution. You want to identify researchers for mentorship or collaboration. And you also want to demonstrate the breadth of your research to either hiring committees, funding agencies, and tenure evaluators. So it's really important from discovery to analysis to publication to outreach and assessment to be able to showcase your research. So it's not just a matter of making sure you are noticed. Of course, you want to ensure that your work that you are doing and the amount of time that you invest in it and your expertise and knowledge gets noticed. But it's also a matter of ensuring that you don't get mixed up with someone else. So the matter of author disambiguation. So what is author disambiguation? Well, name ambiguity is frequently encountered problem in the scholarly community. There are different researchers that, for example, publish underneath the same name, individual researchers that publish under many names. And then we have language and cultural naming conventions that introduces additional challenges, as you can see some of the examples on the screen. So Noam Chomsky, we can see, is also published as various names, and yet it's still the same person. So we also have the scenario where multiple authors share the same name. And it's not just in other regions, even within Southern Africa, we have a situation that many researchers have either the same initial and same surname, sometimes even from the same field, or same name and surname. And once again, they could be from the same field. And we also have scenarios where one author will have multiple name variants, as in the first example. If we look at some of the global situations, we can see that a mere 100 surnames still make up over 85% of China's 1.3 billion citizens. The top three, Li Wang and Zhang, cover more than 20% of the population. So that's a vast number. And of course, to be accurately differentiating between yourself and colleagues and also peer researchers is of great importance. So author disambiguation is a process that aims to find all the publications that belong to a given author and distinguish them from publications of other authors who share the same name. So it really is about setting yourself apart and uniquely identifying the work that belongs to you. So what drives the need for author profiling systems? Why is it so important? Well, obviously, from an individual perspective, you want to learn, example, get familiar with someone else's work. You want to find mentors and ensure that the mentor that you are reaching out is the person that you set out to collaborate, and obviously vet collaborators. It's also about gaining exposure and building a career. And then you want to earn your own scholarly identity. It's the work that you've done. You have the right to put your individual stamp on it. And it's just to ensure that the work that you've done is uniquely associated with yourself. If we look at research producing institutions, they need to showcase faculty expertise, because this allows them to attract the attention of funders. It's really important. Funders want to see return on investments. They, of course, want to know the researchers that they've sponsored and provided funding for. But it's not just that, it also relates to industry and media. So you want to demonstrate return on investment to the public, and you want to be able to promote collaboration across departments. From an institution perspective, if you want to recruit the best researcher for a given area, or even with looking at niche key opinion leaders, you want to make sure that you recruit the best candidates. And you want to ensure that when you assess a researcher's work, that you're doing it within that space and identifying the right research to a specific person. Research funders, of course, recruit grant reviewers based on the work that they've done, identify subject matter experts for board or advisory positions, and of course, it's easier to vet the publication records of grant applicants if it can be uniquely associated with the authors. So scholarly publishers recruit manuscript reviewers, they vet the publications record of submitting authors, and of course, they identify and vet the editors or editorial board members. So all of these aspects in a combination of it, many reasons, drive the need for an author profiling system. And librarians, so our company, we work really closely with your library division as well as the research division, and of course the researchers themselves. But the library is seen as the heart of the institution, and librarians tend to support all of these stakeholders in one way or another, and often bear the burden of wrestling with ambiguous author data in systems. If you think about NRF application, if you think of research evaluation reports or research output reports or citation reports, if you want to determine the H-index of an author, who gets involved, who helps you to portray the right information? It's most of the time, it's the library that assists the researchers in that space. All right. So correctly getting noticed really is of great importance. Of course, we represent Clarivate, and you may be aware of the different solutions that your institution most likely has access to. The one of it is called the Web of Science, which is a multidisciplinary platform that allows you to research and discover, and also for most or a big part of the resources available on the Web of Science platform, it provides citation linking, either looking at cited references, citing papers, and also discovering related papers. So the Web of Science core collection plays a very important role within South Africa and beyond, because it creates it's the starting point when we do citation indexing and citation selection and looking at citation reporting. And within that space, of course, is the report and the performance of individual authors. So within the Web of Science core collection, we have something that's called the Web of Science author record. Now, continuously, Clarivate are improving the algorithm that sits behind the Web of Science author record. Fairly soon, I'm going to show you a short snippet that I think would really make this a lot more clear. But it is all about building your own profile and making yourself visible. So from the Web of Science, we can go into any record and we can see whether this person has either Web of Science Researcher ID or ORCID number. Now, Web of Science Researcher ID and ORCID are two unique identifiers, and this will allow you to have your own publication identity. So today I'm going to specifically talk around Publons as part of our presentation today. You might have a profile already on ORCID. Just bear in mind that the two work really good hand in hand, and you are able to link your Publons account with your ORCID account. So if we take the specific researcher, we want to make sure that the researcher correctly gets noticed. So if we go within the Web of Science core collection, we can go and search for Jeremy Thompson, and we'll be able to see that Jeremy Thompson has published X number of records. So we want to make sure that we correctly identify the right one. So by the author claiming he's work within his profile ensures that the author search and the author record within the Web of Science core collection portrays accurate and updated information around the author's research. So, for example, John Mack, who's a researcher at Rhodes University, this is a search that we did on the Web of Science. And we can see that John Mack's different published names, we can see the different organizations, and we can see that we can also view his public profile. To access the public profile to view the author's work is very easy. We can just click on View Public Profile. What John Mack can also do is to ensure that he verifies himself, which would then in turn improve the algorithm within the Web of Science. And it will also allow him to, of course, get a more up-to-date, complete profile. By clicking on View Public Profile, it takes us to the Publons profile of John Mack. Now, Publons is a place where we can register ourselves, obtain a unique Web of Science researcher ID. Not many people realize, but back then, before Clarivate, was known as Thomson Reuters. And Thomson Reuters were one of the template designers behind ORCID. Of course, ORCID is a objective identifier, and Clarivate supports ORCID IDs. In fact, you are able to search within the Web of Science core collection for a person using his ORCID number, or you can populate his Publons profile using harvesting information from ORCID. Within the Publons profile, and I'll be showing a video shortly to really explain, but the importance of having a Publons profile, which is part of the Clarivate solutions, and it's completely free for you to register, is you can not only display the work that you've done in terms of publishing your own work, you are also able to showcase the work that you've reviewed. Now, if you've published X number of papers and you publish nearly half that time reviewing someone else's work, of course, you've also contributed to that area of expertise. You've also contributed to that field of knowledge. And prior to Publons, you didn't really have a way to display your complete scope of work that you're doing on the authoring side as well on the peer reviewing side. And that's what Publons allows you to do. It allows you to get a fuller picture of the work that you've done, the time that you've invested in your area, subject area, and also the work that you're doing for the scholarly community. So we can track, for example, John Mack's research output over time. We can also see the number of times his papers have been cited. Of course, this would be then the citation information because it comes from the Web of Science. It is dependent on papers that are published in journals that are indexed in the Web of Science core collection. Based on this data, we can then also find a person's H index. And then alongside that, we can see his verified reviews. So almost double the amount that he's published. He's also reviewed other work, and we can see in which years he's reviewed other work. He's also part of the Publons Academy Mentor. And so if I was a researcher working in this field, of course, within chemistry, John Mack would be a really good researcher to keep an eye on, maybe keep track of what he's doing. But also as a funding agency, as an organization itself, it's really good to see all the work that he's doing in a single space. So I'm just going to hop over to another screen, so just bear with me a second. And I'm going to start sharing my screen again.
The world's researchers use Publons to seamlessly track their published articles, citation metrics, peer review contributions, and journal editing work, all in one place. To create a free Publons profile, simply go to publons.com, select Create a Profile, and register. Once you've registered, you will land on your profile dashboard. your one-stop shop for managing your profile. Get started by adding your publication history from the Publications tab. We make it easy to import your publications directly from the Web of Science. Once you've added your publications, we'll retrieve your citation metrics from the Web of Science, the world's most trusted scholarly citation network. You can also import your publications using a range of other options, including from ORCID, DOI or title search, or file upload. Once all your publications are added, you can easily track your H-index, citations over time, and more from your dashboard summary. Publons also lets you effortlessly track your verified peer review and journal editing work thanks to integrations with thousands of the world's academic journals. Be sure to enable the Auto-Add Reviews feature from your review settings to have reviews performed for our thousands of partner journals automatically added to your profile. For any other review records, you can forward the thank you for reviewing emails received from journal editors to reviews@publons.com. We verify the reviews and add them to your profile. Keeping track of all this work in one place makes it easy to demonstrate your impact as an author, journal editor, and peer reviewer in funding and promotion applications with your downloadable record that you can include in your CV. Register for a free Publons profile today and track your work as a published author, journal editor, and trusted peer reviewer, and show your research impact.
All right. So as you can see, it's fairly straightforward to be able to register yourself and get your Publons profile up and running. So I'm just going to hop back to my presentation. All right. So bringing it all together, if we look at Publons, and of course, many of you would think, well, what about ORCID? Well, bringing everything together in one interface means that with the Web of Science Researcher ID that's now available on Publons and the option for you to easier manage your different profiles, you are able to link to ORCID. This will bring a unique experience for unique author identifiers, because your Web of Science Researcher ID is also, or Publons ID has a unique ID number, and it helps you to disambiguate data across systems in a bidirectional relationship. In other words, it works, you can import into ORCID or you can import from ORCID. By creating a Publons profile, you will automatically generate a researcher ID number. And authors can adjust which Web of Science publications are theirs in Publons, and then you can choose and make those changes automatically reflected within the Web of Science. So the Publons author profile informs the Web of Science author record in the back end. So it is really important. It's something that we are trying to drive, and yes, so we just want everyone to be on top of things and ensure that they do register themselves on Publons, because obviously it makes the discovery within the Web of Science so much easier and more accurate. So what if you don't have a Publons profile? As per the video, it really is easy to be able to do it. So there are two easy routes to setting up your own profile. You can either go by claiming your unclaimed Web of Science author record, or a combination of several author records, and I'll show a live example. Or you can go directly to publons.com site and just simply create the Publons profile as per the video. So there are two easy ways in which you can do it. If you created your profile from an author record, the publications in that will be added to your profile. So if you go via the Web of Science, and this was done by Bob Green, who's a trainer at Clarivate. If you created it on Publons site, it would be empty. So you would need to go and populate your profile in the publication section. So as you can see, there's a publication section, and there will be an option to then import the publications from the Web of Science, or you can sync with your ORCID, you can import by identifier, or you can use a file upload in the form of RIS, CSV, or BibTeX. In the profile section, you can make sure that you enter your full name, because that's most likely to appear on the publications. But you can also add alternate publishing names, as John Mack did, because obviously the publishing industry, it's not necessarily standardized. So you might be publishing with a initial and last name with one publisher and a full name, complete full name, with another one. So you can add alternate publishing names, and you can also choose what others will see when they view your public profile. I'll show a live example. In the email section, you can make sure that you enter any addresses that you have used when publishing or doing reviews. And here you can also set preferences for being notified of updates. So it really helps to get tips and when reviewed publications have been published and just staying on top of things. You can also select whether you are available for reviews, and you can set it in the same space. So then they know that you are available to conduct review work. In the permission section, you can then decide how much interaction there is between your profile and the outside world on your review activity. Plus, you can decide what is shown on your profile. So obviously, you remain in control of what the public sees. It's really important. Also in the permissions tab, you can decide if you want to integrate and set up an interaction between your profile and an ORCID record. Within South Africa, we see that many researchers, a big portion of it, already have an ORCID account. So most users want the full two-way synchronization so that they only have to maintain one profile. Then it obviously, it allows you to then populate the other, the Publons profile. All right, so your Publons profile can also include your peer review, grant review, and editorial activities. So it's not just your peer review, but also the other work, as we've mentioned. And you can simply add your review or request recognition from the funder or add an editor record. This means that anyone viewing your profile will have a more complete picture of the work that you've done. And that's exactly what we are striving towards, to accurately define ourselves and the work that we've done, but also what sets us apart. Remember that first image I shared. You want to make sure that you differentiate the work that you've done with others to ensure that you are correctly identified with your full scope of work that you've done. Based on the permissions you have set, then you know that depending on how you've set it, who can view the work that you've done. There are currently over 10 million verified reviews in Publons, and that number is growing. It's also a community that's growing, and which is great because it allows us to communicate on that work. Once you've done with your profile is now complete, and you are able to showcase your work with the Publons CV. So it will allow for individual evaluations. You can really submit it as an electronic CV of the work that you've done. Even for visas to work abroad as an outstanding researcher, you can obviously apply for promotion, job funding and grant applications, and of course, continuing education. So I hope this part has been helpful. Are there any questions before I continue? Right. So this is an example of a Publons CV. So you'll be able to see the person's researcher ID. You'll be able to see whether this person has highly cited research awards or anything you want to make known on your profile. You can decide how much details you want to include in your CV, and you can download it as a PDF to use as you need it. You can also get your review activities, your impact over time, and editor records. All right, so I'm just going to jump into the, I'm just going to jump into the Web of Science and show you how easy it is to be able to find authors, access Publons, and work from that way around. All right, also good news. So this is the new Web of Science interface. By the 7th of July, everyone will have by default access to the new interface. So while you might be seeing the classic version on your end, as of the 7th of July, this is the access that you would have access to. Also using this opportunity just to notify you of the guided tours that are available, anything around training and product updates. So you are welcome to, of course, visit the question mark, which is help on the go. And then the Web of Science core collection, we have the option to select which editions we want to search. I'm currently using Sylvia Khurani, the account manager's access. And we can see by default, I'm in the Web of Science core collection. You also have the option, depending on your institution, to search across the complete database. Right. Within the Web of Science core collection, this is where, of course, the author search comes into play. And to use an example, I'm just quickly going to go into Publons and I'll show you now how to be able to access it. So I'm just going to browse for a researcher and show you. So we can do the same example, Rhodes University. Anyone can search Publons. You don't have to have access or have a profile to be able to search Publons. So there's John Mack, the researcher that I showcased. This is his researcher ID number. And if I search for him within the Web of Science, I can either search, of course, his name, or I can search using his identifier. We can see there are two different profiles. It means that these 190 documents have been claimed. These 20 documents have not been claimed. If they were claimed, we would have skipped this step and we would have gone straight into the author profile. So this is the screenshot that I displayed. So we can see everything around the author, of course, his publications as well. If you want to view a complete set of results, you are able to do so. So when we go to view set of results, it would be your traditional set of results that you are accustomed to and you can see. So part of displaying the work that he's done, of course, there's the citation network in line with what we saw on Publons, his H-index, his publications, some of times cited, citing articles. You also have the option to view the citation report. So how would I access someone's public profile? In other words, his Publons profile from the Web of Science? Well, it's very easy. You can click on View Public Profile and it would take you to exactly that profile that I discovered on Publons. Here we can see in live space a summary of the fields that he works in. We can see his most cited publications. We can also see the metrics. So of course, the number of papers that he's published from the Web of Science and the time cited to those publications. We can also see the more metrics around the publications, which tells us how many of those papers come from the Web of Science. With Publons, you need not only import from the Web of Science, as per my presentation and the video, you can import from ORCID. Of course, the citation metrics will only be displayed for the ones that are within the Web of Science core collection. Once again, the Web of Science core collection is, of course, very important for us. The three primary indexes, sciences, social sciences, arts and humanities, are also the indexes that are accredited by the Department of Higher Education and Training. Also, what we can see is metrics around these review activities. So if you are doing research and you're also peer reviewing work, it's really helpful to be able to showcase the analytics around your peer review activities. And you can see the median and the 99th percentile. And you can also see the average review length. So it also showcases more. So his review to publication ratio is 2:1, which really showcases the complete scope of everything that he does for the research scholarly community that he operates in. Right. Going back to the Web of Science, so it's very easy to access your Publons from the Web of Science. On the right, upper right corner, there's the option that says Publons. So if you say, for example, open in a new tab, it takes you to Publons. I'm logged in, so you would be able to see my dashboard. So this is the back end where you are able to track citations, manage your reviews, see your profile, and all the settings that I briefly explained in the presentation. This is where you are able to set them up. So your email addresses, your availability. I am available to review indefinitely. I'm unavailable to. So you can also set certain time frames. And then, of course, permissions, where you can then notify people. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to step away from Publons, but before I do that, also just to make you aware that subscribing institutions can download the Web of Science app. It's called My Research Assistant. You can either go to any of the stores, the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, and you'll be able to download it. If you log in with your current credentials, you'll be able to use the full scope of the app's functionality, and you'll also be able to conduct your work on the fly with a mobile device. All right. Going back to my presentation, of course, one thing about author visibility and showcasing our work is that we also want to ensure that our work is in the current form of assessing and it's correct, so that we can see what the impact of our research is. And our research impact is concerned with the area of bibliometrics. And if you are interested in a bibliometrics workshop, I would be very happy to support you and arrange a bibliometrics workshop. I'm not going to delve into it in too much detail today, but here we can see the different parts that we concentrate on. We look at the absolute, the like for like, and then we also look at normalization. So the absolute is when we look at the measure of productivity. So in other words, how many papers have you published, how many citations to those papers, and how many percentage of your documents are cited. So those are the absolute indicators that we look at. And then like for like, which makes it limited, allows for limited comparisons. And the H-index is listed here alongside the citation impact and the journal impact factor. So why are we associating it with like for like? Well, if I'm in the field of molecular biology and I want to compare my H-index with someone in the field of computer science, of course, the two subject areas differ vastly in nature and citation activity and scope and everything else. So the average H-index for each field would be different. So we really need to compare like with like. So we have to compare researchers that have been publishing from the same within the same field for more or less the same time or for the same time period to really get an accurate comparison. But even in that context, we still need to take into consideration if you've published in a journal impact factor journal of 45 or 53 versus a journal impact factor of 6. Going into the journal impact factor, it's a really helpful indicator if it's used correctly. The journal impact factor is used to analyze and evaluate journals, and very soon, also exciting news, the new journal citation report will be launched with a new journal citation indicator, also including arts and humanities. The journal impact factor will still be calculated using sciences and social sciences. So just a brief side note, we will be communicating everything to the library. So if you want to know anything about the journal citation reports, please do reach out. But yes, getting back to comparing journals and based on their journal impact factor, it's really helpful to look at how those journals are ranked within its subject category so that you are comparing like with like. So for example, if we are looking at journals compared within multidisciplinary sciences, two prominent titles come to mind, of course, Nature and then Science. So based on the multidisciplinary sciences area that they fall into, we can then compare them with one another based on the impact factor. But I can't go and compare the annual review journal of economics with Nature. Well, it's not the same subject area, of course not, but the journal impact factor would be different. And within the journal citation reports, it's also helpful to see which journals have been indexed in more than one category and what the ranking is of that journal for each of the categories. So that's how we would really be able to assess the work that we're doing, because for every researcher, we are able to determine which journals I've published in and what has been the impact factor or the ranking of that journal. Citation impact. The definition between citation impact really is the average number of citations per paper. What we really want to do is really put normalization and putting the data in context and allow comparisons. And within this space, many institutions have access to a bibliometric research evaluation platform called Insights, Benchmarking and Analytics. And once again, I'm not going to present on that in detail, but just showcasing what these indicators can mean for my researcher visibility and showcasing my work. In that space, I can look at percentile indicators. So how high is my paper being ranked within a given, and which percentile is my paper being ranked within a given subject area? Have I published a highly cited paper? Are you aware of the highly cited authors list that gets produced by Clarivate? It's a very prestigious award. And of course, it's recognizing researchers for the, let's say, the high impact they've had in their field. Highly cited papers are papers that are ranked within the top 1% globally. So we are also able to look at highly cited papers. And then, of course, normalized citation impact, which means if I've published an article in the field of nuclear physics, and I published it in 2020, my paper should be compared with all the nuclear physics papers that have been published in 2020. By doing that, I'm able to benchmark myself against the global average expected number of citations and therefore get a normalized citation impact for the field that I publish in. So let's look at it from a practical point of view. So what we are able to see is going into John Mack's profile on Insights, and I'll do it in a live presentation. And as I mentioned, the Insights benchmarking analytic tool provides many indicators around citation analysis. And what John Mack can showcase is based on the last 5 years, and that's why we would have a slight discrepancy at the moment between this and Web of Science, because I only selected the last 5 years. We can see he published 88 papers, of which 90% of these papers were cited, 54 were with international collaborators. We are also able to delve into his records itself. And when we take a look at one of his records specifically that he's published, we can see this paper was published in 2019. This paper received 26 citations. For the category in which this paper was indexed, you would expect the paper to receive almost 8 citations by now. Of course, he received 26 citations. So for the, let me just get on mine. So for the area that he's published in, he's outperformed the global average expected number of citations 3.28 times. So analytics is also important for us to showcase our own work that we've done. Of course, we can also see the percentile and subject area. And on this note, I want to just share some information around the author impact Beamplot that has been added to the Web of Science. Before I go there, as you can see, I analyzed for researchers and I used his author record. And I could use his author record because of that claim profile that I showcased earlier on. So what is the author record Beamplot? If I go into the Web of Science, and sorry, I know I'm jumping in between screens, but I just want to keep it as interactive as possible. And I go into John Mack's profile, I can see at the right, there's a author metrics, which is called the author impact Beamplot. So you can see view the full Beamplot. There's two different ways in which you can access it. And here we can see we have the export options, and we can look at the recent 10 years up to the last calculated year is 2019. And what it does, it ranks each of these papers. So the closer to 100, the closer to the top mark. So we can see the percentile, the paper that is published in multidisciplinary chemistry, methodologically survey of simplified DFT methods for fast and accurate interpretation of UV Vis-No spectra is ranked within the 94th percentile in 2019 with 29 citations. So this means this paper was ranked within the top 6% of multidisciplinary chemistry based on the citations. The data that's portrayed within the Web of Science, and you have access to it, the data that is portrayed within the Web of Science is taken, the citation counts are from the Web of Science core collection, and the percentile data is from Insights. So if I go back to my presentation, go back to the slide, we can see exactly where that paper is. So this is the same paper we're looking at in the Web of Science, and there we can see that it's ranked, this paper is ranked in the 94th percentile for the subject area. The subject area is multidisciplinary chemistry. That means this paper is ranked within the top 6% of the world. So once again, contributing to the researcher's visibility and the work that he's doing within his field. So to access a author impact Beamplot, you just go to the view full Beamplot, or you can click toggle between the different options here, and you're able to see it. Also, more data at the bottom, 1 publication, 2 publications, 3 or more publications would be a longer bar. All right. Okay. So what does the author record Beamplot do? Well, it's a type of graph that really plots an author's publication citation percentiles values on a beam. It was introduced by the Institute for Scientific Information, which is the, let's say, the research part of Clarivate, or the university part of Clarivate, that does a lot of investigation into different things like profiles, not metrics. They're investigating CGO indicators, SGO indicators. So they published a report in 2018, Profiles, Not Metrics, to look at alternative indicators to the H-index. So to really be able to measure a researcher's citation profile. Not saying that the H-index is not a good indicator. The H-index was created by Dr. J.E. Hirsch. It's just there are limitations that you need to be aware of. So the author record Beamplot, or author impact Beamplot, as you know, is available in the Web of Science. And you can see this performance within that space change over time. And the higher percentile value would, of course, mean that you ranked in the top percent. So this is just the example that I showcased, looking at John Mack's example, and of course, referring back to the data that I've showcased. All right, so just to know, the percentile values are sourced from Insights, including the Emerging Sources Citation Index, which is part of the citation indexes within the Web of Science core collection. They only include publications with the Web of Science document type articles and reviews, because we're working with normalized indicators and percentile rankings, and this is the type of document that are being published globally and mostly within that too. But percentiles are calculated for publications back to 1980. It may be assigned to more than one subject category, and the categories displayed in the highest performing. All right, so what has been the influence ever since introducing the author impact Beamplot? Well, we can see the impact it has had on the Web of Science. Since adding the Beamplot to the author records, we've seen a positive indication that it's a valuable addition to the Web of Science. To measure the impact, they compared the 4 weeks before the release and then 4 weeks after. And then there were now currently over 750,000 claimed author records within the Web of Science. So people are realizing the great importance that as you go and search for your records in the Web of Science and claim them within your Publons profile to ensure that the algorithm behind the author record is being constantly improved. So if we look at some useful data, the average time spent looking at an author record page has increased. The total views of author record pages has also increased by 182%. The number of users clicking to claim their record has also dramatically increased by 207%. And we've seen the increase in number of users registering for the Web of Science, in other words, creating their unique profiles to ensure that the author records are more accurately displayed. So it really is about accelerating your research and advancing your career, because you want to conduct research. And with that, you can, of course, utilize the Web of Science. Within the Web of Science, we've got additional support tools that can really help you. Just to quickly show you, within the product space, there's something called EndNote Click. It's formerly known as Cupanio. That is a full text link resolver. So if I go into a publication record, just to show you an example, the pop-up would appear. We just need to wait for it. It will appear and you will be able to link to the full text immediately. So that's the EndNote Click. So you can quickly access the full text version that you've got access to. Right, so that is EndNote Click. And then of course today we spend time on showcasing your research and making your research visible. So that is done through Publons and the author records. With published findings, you can of course use EndNote. So it's a time authoring tool. And for those that don't have EndNote institutional access, you still get a slightly more basic version through the Web of Science, once again available in the tools. So you can go to products and you can go to EndNote. And then Journal Citation Reports is also able to quickly identify leading journals that you publish in. Promoting your output is, of course, once again, Publons and author records to showcase the full picture of your scholarly contribution. And with your Publons CV, you are able to submit that to obtain funding for your project. And if you have papers within the Web of Science core collection, the Web of Science core collection is highly recognized as the industry standard when it comes to citation information, having the reputation of indexing the most accurate, reliable information around the world. And because the statistics is objective, Clarivate they don't publish their own content, so they're only indexed content from publishers that have reached a standard outlined by them. We know that the funding organizations regard the information within the Web of Science core collection as objective, verifiable, and it presents that statistics to support your research. Right, so I want to thank you for your time, and I think I've kept within the time frame. We still have a minute or two left for any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask if there are any questions. If you can please make use of the chat box. Yes, I will be circulating the recording, Kevin. I will include a couple of helpful links, including a link to a LibGuides page. So perhaps I can just use my time to show this to you. So the Clarivate LibGuides, they also have a section, if you scroll below, author and researcher's guide. It's a really helpful tool. If you work with younger researchers and you want to see how you can work with them, there's also lesson plans. And of course, for the libraries who have joined, there's also a librarian toolkit. The author and researcher guide, it really is about first steps, building your profile. You're building your profile. It's all about what we did today. So your author search guide, your Publons ORCID integration, how to register, the video that I've showcased, and then introduction to the author record, which is also a very helpful video and just really emphasizes the importance to go and claim your work. So you're welcome to also go and visit that video, but it's on the LibGuide, and I'll be sure to insert this in my follow-up correspondence. Right. Yes, absolutely. I'll be able to share it. Okay, so I have a question around the difference between Publons and Web of Science. All right, so just to quickly just explain once again, let me quickly share my screen. I've just realized I didn't share my screen with the LibGuide, sorry. So LibGuides, just to reiterate what I was saying. So there's the author and researcher guide at the bottom, but I'll be sharing this with you. And building your profile, you go and you scroll down to the bottom where you can see the video I played earlier on, and also the introduction to the author record. All right, so the difference between the Web of Science and then Publons. Publons is a platform where you can register and obtain your unique researcher ID, your Web of Science researcher ID. So if I open up for this record, if I open up this link, we can say Professor Neil Kong at Rhodes University as both a researcher ID and an ORCID ID number. So she's registered on both. The reason why she would want to have a researcher ID is if I go to her Publons profile, we can see that it obviously contains her publications. In John Mack's case, he's also added his peer review activity of the work that he's done. Let's just quickly go back to his profile. He's also added the peer review work. So it's all about seeing how the Web of Science researcher ID is fully populated with your work, because in the back end, it helps to inform. If we go to his profile, sorry, let me just copy that again. And if I do a author search, and I do a author identifier, it remains. So what it helps to do is to accurately inform the author search so that I find his correct word. So when it's claimed, it means that he's claimed his author record. I can quickly show that video. I think that would also explain it very clear to you, maybe for the others that are also in the room. Sorry, let me just make sure, yeah. Sure.
Searching for papers written by a specific author can be challenging. Authors may have changed their name over time, or may have the same name and initials as another researcher. Author name ambiguity makes it difficult to find and assess the work of individuals. The Web of Science uses several tools to solve this problem, working in tandem: author records, numerical author identifiers, and author profiles. Let's take a look at each one and how Web of Science helps you take control of your researcher identity. Web of Science uses a combination of artificial intelligence and human curation to disambiguate authors. Our algorithm computes over 250 million authorships from the Web of Science core collection and uses over 40 features to determine the likelihood that two publications belong to the same author, including name matching, affiliation, citation behavior, and co-authorship patterns. This is paired with verified author input from Publons and ORCID, which use numerical identifiers. as well as feedback from the global Web of Science user community, which enables the algorithm to learn and improve author data. The result is clusters of papers called author records. You can find these author records by clicking on an author name or by running an author search. These aren't profiles, but represent a set of likely papers for that person. One person may have more than one author record if they've changed their research focus, changed their name, or collaborated with different groups of authors. Authors then claim their author records in the core collection, confirming which articles are theirs. These claimed author records are stored in a free, public researcher profile on Publons and will be tagged with the unique Web of Science Researcher ID number. As they publish more papers, they can continue adding to their profile, which automatically updates their Web of Science author record. But anyone who uses Web of Science, not just authors, can contribute to making Web of Science author records better. Author records have the option to provide feedback through a form that will be verified manually by Web of Science data team members for accuracy, helping to improve author data. Only registered users of Web of Science can submit feedback and must provide contact details as well as their relationship to the author. See our video on curating author records for more details. Curated and claimed author records mean better author search, discovery, and analytics. We're all trying to get better author data. Let's get there together.
All right, so I do hope that does explain it. Please go, and there are 3 videos. They're really informative, they're very short, and they do make everything quite clear. Thank you very much for the positive feedback. I'm really glad that you found this session